Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic La Arcada Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.
Hello, I'm Patricia DiOrio, and this is Get Conscious Now. Welcome to the out-of-the-box informational, inspirational talk show about what it means to live a conscious life in today's chaotic world. Today's episode is about conscious film. So we're going to look at what comprises making conscious films, conscious filmmaking, but we're also going to be telling you about an event, the first conscious film festival ever, that's going to be happening right here in Santa Barbara at the end of October. It's called the Awakened World International Film Festival Retreat. And we're going to be hearing all about that in today's show. So if you're a fan of Get Conscious Now, you're not going to want to miss this event coming up in October. And with me, of course, is my wonderful, entertaining co-host, Stu Zimmerman, who I'm sure has some wonderful words of welcome for you. Stu?
Patricia,
good to see you, darling.
Sweetie, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Yes. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Get Conscious Now. And somehow, as Patricia mentioned, if you may not be a fan yet, it's not too late. And hopefully this show will entertain you and inform you both. And if you've missed any of our programs going back in time, and we've done, about 15 shows now, we have some wonderful programs, amazing guests, and people like Deepak Chopra. So find us on YouTube or on Facebook and come friend us and watch some of the programs you may have missed, because they're all absolutely delightful. And for the rest of this program, we're also having, in addition to a fantastic interview where we'll learn about this film festival, another riveting edition of Patricia's own Quantum Quotes, and dare I say, my Stu's views. So you're going to want to stay tuned for all of it. And with that, Patricia, please introduce our guest.
I will. So I don't know about all of you, but I love the movies. I've always enjoyed going to the movies. It's been one of my favorite pastimes. But I've been very amazed and dismayed in recent years about the amount of violence that's happening on screen. Maybe it's always been like this, and maybe it's just as we become more conscious and wake up, we become much more sensitized to negativity in any form. But to me, what's on the screen today, for the most part, is off the charts with the violence and the negativity. But the good news is that consciousness, as we've discussed it on this show, is seeping into the film industry, and it's making some major changes in what we're able to have for our entertainment. And testimony to that fact is coming today from our guest, Barbara Fields, who is the founder of the Awakened World International Film Festival Retreat. I had the pleasure of meeting up with Barbara in preparation for this show, and I have to tell you that she is an amazing visionary and way shower, and we're really, really happy to have her on the show today. She has one of those bios with all of these amazing credentials and accolades, and I'm not going to give them all to you today, but I would like to share a few. She is currently the executive director of the Association for Global New Thought, and she has been the co-founder and project director of the Gandhi King Seasons for Peace and Nonviolence. Hope you don't mind if I read these. And program director for the Parliament of the World's Religions Centennial Celebration in Chicago. Co-founder and project director of the Synthesis Dialogues 1, 2, 3, and 4 with none other than the Dalai Lama. And also contributing author to the book, The Community of Religions, The 100 Visionaries women, 200 visionaries, women, spirituality, and transformative leadership. So that's just a little snippet of what this woman has done. So we're really honored and delighted to have Barbara Fields on the show with us today. Barbara, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Yes,
Wonderful.
welcome.
Being able to talk with the two of you about subjects I like so much.
That's right. We're going to have a good time. So I'd like to ask you the first question to kick off the interview. You're obviously a spiritually conscious woman that's very passionate about wanting to make a difference in the world and bringing consciousness to people. How did this evolve for you? Can you just give us a little bit of background about how you first realized that this really was the work that you wanted to be doing, and leading up, if you will, you can perhaps give us like a broad brushstroke leading up to doing the festival?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know it is, but I'm
I'll
sure
try not to say, well, when I was 12 years old. However, when I was a hippie in the 1960s, I was one of those people who came alive with the notion that we had some social responsibilities, and at the same time I was studying Eastern religions and understood for my own self that spirituality was a part of the activism that was sustainable. But I think that everything that the 60s accomplished were not necessarily things that were visible in the next couple of decades, but that spirit never really left me personally or my friends and colleagues. And so all the choices that I made since then in terms of my career and my personal life have been centered around spirituality and activism. And so the organizations that I've worked with, the projects that I've worked on, these are a natural extension of not necessarily hitting the mark, but constantly, at least, being inspired to move toward an incremental closeness to trying to be a contributor to society, and based on a sense of deep spiritual values, however your tradition expresses them. I mean, I have no biases in that way, but a spiritually motivated activism is the only kind of activism that's sustainable. And I just can't see any other truth for myself.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, thank you. Yeah.
So now you are the executive director for the Association of Global New Thought. What new thought are we really talking about here?
Actually, New Thought is a religious tradition that's almost 200 years old, and it started in this country. It's sometimes referred to by some of the early founders, such as Ernest Holmes, as a uniquely American religious tradition. And that's because it was a reaction against the dogmatic Church of England, coming to it with a sense of democracy and freedom that this country was built on. There were religious and spiritual reactions to that. So New Thought has a history with the Transcendentalists, for example, borrows from literature, from Emerson and Thoreau, that sort of thing. And so coming forward, it basically turned into two streams: the unity churches that many people are familiar with, and the Church of Religious Science, which are now under one umbrella called the Centers for Spiritual Living. So New Thought is not just a kind of abstract term. It actually refers to a group of spiritual and religious practitioners that are very progressive in their theology and in their activism.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would distinguish them specifically, let's say, from thought that isn't as new in terms of maybe some of the organized religions? Or can you make that comparison?
Well, what's interesting is that New Thought was never meant to mean new in terms of most modern. New Thought's sort of founding premise is that if you want things to change, you change your thinking about, you change your consciousness. You don't necessarily change the circumstance. And so New Thought means if something is happening that is not in accord with what you wish to see, you basically be the change you want to see in the world. You have a new thought, a new consciousness about that idea, and the new consciousness changes the circumstance So it isn't really about whether it's modern or contemporary.
Well, it's really about the micro and the macro in a way, because in the micro, if you want to change a circumstance, you change your thinking. But the macro is, our thoughts are creating our world, right?
Right, taken together,
right.
We collectively as a society are creating a society based on our thoughts and our ideas and feelings.
Right, right. So I thought that it would be a very good idea to show a clip for the festival so people can get a flavor for what they're going to be enjoying at the end of October. So right now we're going to show a 3-minute clip on the Awakened World International Film Festival retreat.
I know where you're going to be, October 2014. You're going to be at the Awakened World Film Festival, the very first one. The categories are spirit, society, and self.
You're going to meet like-minded people. You're going to have some very interesting movies to look at. What you're going to be able to do is expand your consciousness and awaken yourself further into this magnificent beauty that we call life.
I love New Thought and I love movies. And so this film festival is the perfect coming together of our spiritual principles and a view of life on our planet at this time in an awakening way.
We have a selection of movies just for you, the New Thought community. Positive films that can touch, move, and inspire people. Promote them out so it can make a difference on the planet.
New and emerging films that can inspire us, that can challenge us, and that can give us an opportunity to leave transformed and committed to looking more deeply at how we can make a difference in the world.
So what could be better than being among people who are interested in what's possible, watching some very compelling, powerful, beautiful films, having workshops, praying together, sharing together, enjoying the beautiful scenery? What could be better than that? So join us for this.
The Association for Global New Thought really understands the power of shared experience. So our New Thought Film Festival, an Awakened World Film Festival, really is about what's trying to happen that's good, what's emerging in the human consciousness.
Think festival, think camaraderie, think spiritual gathering, think fun, think education, think transformation, think you being there, Santa Barbara, October 2014. I'll see you there. I've already put it in your calendar.
Awakened World Film Festival, be there!
Wow, that looks like it's going to be a fabulous festival. I'm really excited about seeing it. I can't wait. And I believe it's going to be the last week in October. So Barbara, I was fascinated with why the word retreat is at the end of the name of the festival, which is long to begin with. And I thought, wow, retreat. So share about that.
I wish I could take credit for it, but the credit goes to Michael Imperioli, who is a local Santa Barbara resident now. His family moved a year or so ago from New York City, and some people might know him from the HBO series The Sopranos. And he's been in many really wonderful feature films, and in fact, his film, The Hungry Ghost, that he wrote and directed is in our festival. And we had a reception for some of our local steering committee, and I was trying, it was the very beginning of the planning process, so I was trying to explain why this was different in a way, and not just a festival where you see a film, go to lunch, don't know anybody, etc. And I started to explain how in-depth we were going with each of the films, and Michael said, you know, what you're describing is a retreat. It's a retreat around film, so that everybody gets a chance to really contemplate and share and communicate about the core concepts. And I realized that if we added that word to the already very long title, that it would communicate more specifically what we were up to at this point.
Yeah, a retreat really indicates going within, you know, and the festival is very much being without, but it's like the catalyst to bringing us in.
We even said it was a festival wrapped around a retreat. So you can go in and out. I think it's going to be a very holistic experience for every attendee.
And this is probably the first one ever on the planet, as far as we know, correct?
Well, the first one of this particular ilk, I suppose.
Right.
I mean,
I'm talking about Conscious Film Festival.
You know, I have to say that I'm sure that, and in fact do know of film experiences that have shown films about peace and films about, you know, social responsibility and films about anti-war and the environment and so on. So I'm kind of reluctant to say the first anything or that we really invented it. I feel more like we're evolving. We're part of the part of society that's evolving the concepts and contributing more to it all the time, rather than have some sort of exclusive, you know, parameter around this film.
Well, I think Santa Barbara is the perfect place to do this because we have a reputation anyway of having our own film festival here, the Santa Barbara Film Festival. So this is probably going to be the inaugural event, hopefully.
I hope so.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah, we'll just say a little bit more about these films in terms of focus and content. And you know, I think you mentioned something about maybe anti-war or peace, pro-peace, for example, is maybe some of the content. But why don't you describe more about what people would be seeing at these films?
Well, what we did in the beginning was we identified 3 streams of programming: spirit, society, and self. And as we started getting film submissions, we realized that many of the films could have fit into any of those categories. But for the purpose of organizing challenging information, because people are going to be asked to think deeply about the films that they're presented with. It's not just entertainment by any means, although many of the films are very entertaining. So the idea of looking into spirituality per se, looking into society and social concerns, and also looking into information and films about healthy lifestyles and feelings and communication and how to develop, you know, inner capacities. These are the 3 film streams that we'll be looking at. And so I don't know if you want me to talk specifically about some of the films in these different areas or if we'll get into that later, but...
Yeah, we'll probably get into that later. I'd like to do that.
Okay.
We'd like to ask you what some of your favorites are.
Okay.
So what then, it's so exciting, I'm really excited about it. What then would you see the desired outcome being? If you could have the pentultimate outcome of this festival, what would that look like? What is your vision?
Well, my vision is that we've crafted this festival so that people can see a film and have Q&A with the filmmakers, as is usual in a film festival. But the unique feature is that after that, we've provided a good chunk of time so that in a facilitated workshop that will be led by AG&T leaders and the filmmakers that are representing the film, they'll be able to actually, with the audience in sort of a full interactive experience, look at the core concepts that are presented, talk about how do you take these home? How are these concepts meaningful in terms of action when you leave here? And what are some possible templates that we can suggest to people who are connected with spiritual communities or conscious communities when they go home? How can they actually use a template that has been based on someone's lifetime of work and make it activated in their own community where they have their own friends and people that they work with and other organizations that they work with. So the best possible outcome is not just to be inspired, but actually be sort of strategically informed, form some networking with the community around it, and go home and know how to be leaders of those ideas in their own right.
Put them into action.
Exactly. It's all about that right
it
now.
is.
We've been in the age of dialogue
Activism.
for decades. We're ready
Really?
to move on.
Right. Exactly. Let the rubber hit the road.
Consciousness and activism.
Right.
So, how did you go about the selection process and screening? What movies would kind of make the cut? And did you have an eye towards those films that would lend themselves most towards a sense of integration and activism?
Well, we knew in general what categories we were looking in. And then as, you know, we intended to put out a call for submissions, and we never got that far because we got so much just by some word of mouth or some kind of surprising process. We really didn't reach out for films, and films started pouring in, which shows you what a hunger there is among filmmakers to have a forum for this work that really isn't popular on other platforms for film these days, which was an education for me in itself. So the films started coming in, and for one thing, they were just so enlightening and fun to watch because they're not the ones that would normally come, you know, across your door in Netflix or in, you know, the movie theaters or what have you. The Association for Global New Thought board of, you know, leadership board, they all started watching films. We had meetings where we watched films. We have a local steering committee who was taking DVDs, and you know, we kind of crafted the process as we went through it.
It was an organic process.
It was an organic process, but because I also have a left brain, I finally invented a tool where people at large could take a kind of fill out a fairly detailed survey about every film that they watched, and then they could, that through the internet, I won't mention the service that does it, came back to me, and I could see kind of at a glance how people rated the many aspects of film, including cinematography and how it was directed and how people...
And who were the people that took the survey?
Well, we have also a board of advisors, we have local steering committee. There probably were about 50 or 60 people involved in decision making. Not that they made the final decisions, but I wanted to get a very broad sense. It's like being a buyer in a department store. I might like a certain kind of thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be publicly acclaimed. So I wanted to get a broad sense of how these films played. But strangely enough, our entire consciousness community, they came to a lot of agreement about what inspired them and what didn't do anything at all. So it wasn't that difficult really until the final, when we were really up to the place where we had very little room. In fact, we're still getting films, and some of the best films are coming in now.
Oh, and you've already done your scheduling?
We've already made
which implies a second annual.
Exactly.
Second annual,
exactly.
Right. How many films are we talking about here?
Well, we're showing approximately 20 films in the festival, which seems like that's not a lot of films compared to a normal film festival, starting Monday night through Thursday night and 3 full days of programming. So the fact is that there are sometimes 2 films in a session, but usually one is shorter. There are 2 short films in a session. But most sessions are 1 film, and then other programming around the film, which is where the retreat aspect is brought in. So that we'll do discussion and we'll do meditation together, and there'll be, you know, other parts of that session than just watching a film and then going to lunch.
Oh, and meditation's included. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you're going to be showing documentaries as well as feature-length films. Can you just share a couple of your favorites with us? Or is that kind of letting the cat out of the bag?
They're all my favorites.
They're all of your favorites.
They're
I'm putting
all
you
my
on the spot.
children. As I mentioned, Michael Imperioli's film, The Hungry Ghost, that's one that I really love. It's probably the edgiest film in our festival. I don't know that it would be necessarily general rated or what have you, but it does explore some of the shadow side of human nature. But I love the documentary called Money and Life, which is a really excellent look at, you know, modern and contemporary and future economy and how it is interrelated to environmental issues and social issues. There's a wonderful movie called Under the Same Sun, produced by an organization in Washington, D.C. called Search for Common Ground. And it's a feature narrative based on a true story of an Israeli and a Palestinian businessman who think they're going into business around solar energy, but end up really being a big part of a peace effort with the help of the internet and the grassroots voices. There's great films about activism. There's a film about with His Holiness the Dalai Lama meeting with students from 3 different continents and exploring the question, what is happiness? A film that a local actor, Jeff Bridges, was a part of called A Place at the Table looks at some serious issues about hunger in America. It's a wonderful film. Bridge Walkers talks about indigenous people in this country and all over the world. There's just, it's such a wide variety of films.
That's great. That's great.
So who are you reaching out to and targeting as the audience to be invited in here? Is it people who already are identified with New Thought, or is it open possibly to, you know, a little bit more of a mainstream?
Well, you know, we're going to have a lot of people from the New Thought community coming here to Santa Barbara, many of them for the first time. So it's going to be exciting to have a few hundred, you know, out-of-towners let loose on the streets of downtown Santa Barbara for a week or so. But I already can see from the interest in our community that a lot of local people who love the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, who love films, but Santa Barbara is a unique place in that we have a lot of spiritual activists in this town. They may not call themselves that, but you have a show called Get Conscious Now because there are a lot of folks in Santa Barbara who are getting and being conscious now, that in a way that I don't find to be representative of cities in the country or even around the world. It's a unique spot, as you well know. So I believe that locally, regionally, nationally, even we have some international guests already signed up to attend, that people who are, as we've talked about just in the course of this show, they're interested in an so-called entertainment media industry that is evolving in its own consciousness so that it's not just empty entertainment. And I don't believe any sector of society is interested in empty entertainment anymore. I think those days are over. A lot of people sitting at the top of the industry may not think it's over. And there are plenty of people willing to buy that junk that's
but what about all the violence that's out there in the horror movies that people still want to see, that to me don't have any redeeming value except to scare them and to...
I just came up with a great term right here on the spot. Media fundamentalism.
Media fundamentalism.
Because I work a lot with religious organizations and leaders around the world. And we've explored the fact that there are fundamentalisms in every religion as well as progressive thinkers in every religion. But that's not just relegated to the realm of religion. There's fundamentalists in every aspect of society, economic fundamentalists, political fundamentalists. I think that there is a genre that we could call media fundamentalists that are the slowest adapters to how society is really changing. And they like the escapism. They want to be bombarded with things that don't make them feel and think or work or challenge them too much, and are just sort of willing, as they are, if I might say it, watching the mainstream media, the news for example, just willing to accept whatever is sort of flashed in front of their glazed over eyes, if I can say that. I know it's not, it's a little bit insulting. I'm sorry to be judgmental, but I do believe that we're facing a media crisis in our world right now.
Well, the violent films and the scary films, I mean, I've heard people say, well, people watch that because they want to get, you know, they're bored with their lives. They don't have that passion that fortunately, you know, we share in our commitment to really making a difference on the planet. And when they watch a film that's violent, like war or horror or whatever, it kind of gets their juices flowing where they don't have that in their everyday life. Do you think that's true?
I've heard that said, but I think this is a chicken and the egg question. Which comes first? And I'd like to say the shell, but what I really believe is that people are trained to make choices. And in our culture especially, media influences those changes. So those tastes, and people don't know if they're choosing those films or are people choosing those films because the determiners of media content are telling them to. And so I believe that if we were to present those people, all people are capable of up-leveling their thinking in this way. If they were presented with better choices, they would be trained to make better choices. I think it's just that simple. I don't believe that there's an inherent human need to be adrenalized in that way.
So it's about societal conditioning.
Exactly.
In a way, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, when you mentioned those glazed over eyes, and everything ultimately is in the eye of the beholder and a matter of perception. Because I've noticed that I get activated by a program called House of Cards. Okay.
I love that.
I do too.
Yeah, so we're conscious people loving a program that's about power mongering, lying, and the president of the United, I don't want to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen the show yet, but murder and duplicitous, you name it, conniving, right? All in the name of individual power. Which isn't exactly, I think, that any of us would subscribe to as what we're here for or what motivates us. But what I did notice is this guy appears to be, Kevin Spacey's character is incredibly effective in having his desired outcome because of his sense of clarity. And his clarity is he wants to be head honcho, he wants to be number one. And I've noticed that if I can apply that same degree of clarity just to being loving and caring and just opening my heart up to more people, I've noticed that things are shifting in really interesting ways where I'm not so punitive with my kids when they start getting out of line because I'm more mindful of coming to a loving solution and not necessarily an authoritative one. And so I think that this really can be a great opportunity for just about anybody to just open their hearts and minds a little bit to the possibilities so that whatever they see, they can be seeing through a new lens.
Right. Now this is important because the reason I like the show, well, it's a complex show and it's educational because I believe a lot of it is based on exactly the realities of our political system.
Unfortunately.
It's one of my favorite shows because I think it's really happening. You know, I mean, it happens within our government and people are pretty much asleep to it. So in a way, I would say that the masses are asleep to it. So in a way, what it's doing is helping to wake up people to the fact that this kind of shenanigans, for lack of a better word, is happening in our government right now today, and probably in other governments throughout the world. You know,
but it's captivating because it's well written, it's complex, it's not black and white, it's challenging. I believe that we can, those are the things that capture people's attention and help them learn and help them change their minds about prevailing attitudes. So we can't just expect to give non-entertaining, non-engaging content on our media and expect people to pay attention to it. It doesn't happen. You have to wake people up in terms of their emotional life too.
Well, Kevin Spacey is fabulous in that.
Good plug for House of Cards. Right?
Yeah, really.
Way to go, Netflix.
Okay. We should probably have that in the Conscious Film Festival and have a dialogue around it and have a conscious analysis of it because there's both some beautiful things in there and obviously some things that we would really not espouse.
I think the show really speaks to core values. It really helps people get clear on what their core values are because they see the core values of these of the characters, and their values are core, but they're not very admirable, many of them.
Exactly.
Anyway, so in researching the quote for tonight's show, I came across many great quotes, and there was one by Alfred Hitchcock that I thought, well, I'm just going to throw this into the middle of the show because I wanted to get your opinion on it. And he says that in feature-length films, the director is God. In documentaries, God is the director. So give us your opinion of that quote from Alfred Hitchcock.
Well, I won't speak too much to the side about director being God in feature-length films because I think everyone is more familiar with that world and what the director's role is, and the fact that we have a good film because there's a good director, because they are very intentional about their purpose and what they hope to achieve. And it's a technical art form. It's a form of art which I respect very much. But I am intrigued by the notion of God being the director in documentary films, because the reason that we're motivated to make a documentary film is because there is an issue or a circumstance in society or in a personal story that is important and universally representative of people or populations on this planet, and that it's a way of showing that there is life that wants to be recognized in this universal way. That this story could be true for someone in New York City or someone in Bangladesh or what have you. My feeling is that when you say that God is the director of that, you're really just saying that reality is the shaper of the outcomes of that story. That we human beings have something that we can contribute to it, and we can find our way through it. But in reality, we're trying to pay attention to what God, reality, the source, the truth underneath it all is trying to tell us about this particular situation that would be instructive if we're in the business or have the motivation to try to make it better. It's sort of a question of art imitating life. If this is the reality, let's see if we can create art that reflects reality in its highest forms, rather than basically succumb to a lower expression of reality in that way.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
So what we're doing at the film festival retreat here is interweaving art with reality, hopefully to shape a new reality for people through their activism.
Right.
What kind of interactivity are you planning for the attendees so that they can really go into this kind of retreat space?
Well, I think what I love is that every single session is long. There's a morning and an afternoon session that are 2.5 to 3 hours long. And it's not that the film is that long, but at the minute that people enter the venue, and the venues, by the way, are the Libero Theater, that's our main venue, Center Stage Theater, and the Auditorium Sanctuary at the Unity Church right across from Alice Keck Park. But the minute that they enter the venue, they're not just going to be sort of chatting until somebody tells them to quiet down, let's begin to show. Begin the show. There'll be ambience in the form of video, photography, and artistic collages. There'll be ambient sound. There'll be a container that's created the moment they walk in. After they're welcomed to the room as a community, they'll be introduced to a contemplative technique, a meditation exercise, but we'll cover a wide variety of traditions because they're excellent teachers in Santa Barbara and who will join us from all different traditions that consider meditation and contemplation important. And in the experience of getting exposed to this, people will begin to go within themselves and also be part of a community building experience.
Retreat.
A retreat. And then they'll also get to see the film, they'll learn about the film, they'll meet the filmmaker, they'll get to ask questions. And then at the very end, they'll have a significant workshop, as I mentioned before, where they'll actually be able to talk about what they saw, ask questions, be led in exercises, be given strategies and techniques. So then they'll go to lunch. They might be able to do Tai Chi or yoga in the park with people who are volunteering services, or sit at community tables in our local restaurants and get to know one another. It'll be kind of a beehive of activity that just keeps sort of moving and moving all throughout the week.
That's great. So what do you think an event like this could contribute to the paradigm shift that's happening today as people are really waking up and becoming conscious that, I'm going to say it, that we're spiritual beings having a human experience and we're creating our reality?
I think it's that good old issue of supply and demand that I think this will contribute. That if people are exposed to a higher level of material and actually respected, have their intelligence respected enough to say, we know this is what you're interested in and what you're capable of interacting with, then what people I hope will start to do is say, we want more of this. We're done with what we've been given before, and we're actually trying to demand content that has a higher standard now. And so I'm really hoping that just by having an event like this, there might be other events like this, or people might go home to their communities and say, we want to have an event like this. In other words, change the supply of what's available because people are demanding a higher quality experience.
And you certainly saw that with the fact that you didn't even really need to put the outreach to, I mean, the RFP, if you will, for the films to come in, that just happened. Because it's an idea whose time has come.
It's amazing.
Indeed. In fact, Barbara, I've been kind of wondering about, you personally, you're really a beautiful bright light, I must say. Yes.
She is.
Yes, indeed. And just wondering, do you have personal practices yourself that kind of transcend the film festival activities here that you do personally to help keep your mind and heart as clear and centered as possible?
No, I just came in perfect.
Oh. Well, you know what?
Well, no, that's true, though. You did.
I guess not all men or women are created equal, right?
Well, I've been studying world religions and working in the area of interreligious dialogue for a long time, and so I've met so many incredible practitioners and become familiar with many spiritual practices, and I have learned from those techniques, and I have created a kind of a hybrid. But I do believe ultimately we have to create a hybrid that becomes our own unique practice, because it involves learning about who we are ourselves, what is the context of the society we're living in, and what is the passion that we hope to create and become, and then devise a practice that supports that. And that's what I hope I have done.
So you have an eclectic practice.
I don't know what to call it. It's beyond words, and it should be beyond words, because that's my respite from the world that is so chaotic.
And you go there every day?
Every day.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely.
So I know that you're the founder of the festival, and you're certainly a key person. Are you going to be doing are there going to be specific films that you might be introducing, or are there going to be any evening galas or events that?
We have 4 evening events. I have such a wonderful leadership council and group of leaders around me that actually speak for a living, I might say. The president of our organization is Dr. Michael Beckwith, who, as you know, he's part of the Agape International Spiritual Center in LA. I always put them in the front because they do such a wonderful job, and I like to be behind the scenes making sure that everything is really running smoothly. But in the evenings are not just films. In fact, the concentration in the evenings is not on films. We have live music some of the best live music that you will ever see in this town are happening Monday through Thursday nights. We're having artists from some local artists from LA, artists coming in from other parts of the country that are going to be bringing music that is also like these films, the conscious music.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the What the Bleep film that actually inaugurated 10 years ago is celebrating its 10th anniversary at our Wednesday evening gala. And we have people who were connected with the film, and the director, Will Arnst, who lives here in Santa Barbara. We have a World Peace Night that has world music associated with it and shows one of the most brilliant, shorter films that I've seen in a long time, and I don't think many people are familiar with it. It's called World Peace and Other Fourth Grade Achievements, based on a world peace game that a teacher actually devised and ran for eight weeks with classes that's taking off now around the world.
Wow.
That's one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. And a celebrity panel discussing the idea of how film, music, and the arts can be a platform for activism, which my working title for is The Stage of Aquarius. How can we use those things as a platform for activism?
Right.
Beautiful. So how can people get in touch and learn more and get connected with this festival somehow, because I know they want to?
Well, it's easiest to remember awakenedworldfilmfestival.com, because if you can remember that, awakenedworldfilmfestival.com, then you'll see everything you need to know. It'll tell you what the schedule is. It'll allow people to come and view trailers of the films, to read about the workshops, to read all about the conveners, to see our sponsors, to register to see the different packages. You can attend the whole event. You can come for a day. You can come for an evening. We try to be as flexible.
Are you going to have like the platinum and all the different levels of cost for it, or?
We have several different levels. I think it's an extremely affordable festival. And have designed it to be so, because we can't eliminate people because of their economic
that would be
abilities.
Flying in the face of what you're up to.
And we'll be having scholarships for students and educators. I mean, there's a lot of ways to come in. In fact, we don't want anybody not to come. And so if people come to the festival, if people call the Association for Global New Thought office or email about the festival, which you can from the website, and have something to offer, we'll work with everyone. We want everyone to have a chance to be there.
Well, we have flown by the time we have flown. The
That's
time
amazing
has flown by.
how
I know.
fast
I can't believe it's.
too.
We've flown too. We've been flying. I'd like to close the show with you. Close this interview with a pearl of wisdom that you might have for our viewers. So, what comes to mind that you'd like to leave our viewers with after this interview, Barbara?
Well, I gave this just a moment of thought, and I remembered something, a short presentation that I gave many, many years ago, and I was asked the same question, and it was a surprise to me then. But what I would like to say is, this is my ethic, and it's comes down to something very simple. For one thing is, if you can help, help. The second part is, do the work that's in front of you. And the third part is, never indulge corruption, especially in yourself. And I find that those 3 steps have helped me very much when my path was unclear to me, and have guided me through some real challenging times and helped me always go to the higher ground.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so excited about the festival. We can't wait.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We'll be there too.
We'll be there.
Of course you will. You must be there.
Absolutely.
And hopefully our viewers will be there. Our viewers will be there as well. So thank you so much, Barbara, for being on the show. This was really wonderful.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah. Wow, that was an excellent interview with Barbara Fields, and I encourage all of you to attend the festival at the end of October. It's going to be wonderful. So now comes a segment I bet all of you are just waiting breathlessly for, and that is Stu's Views. So I'm happy to introduce Mr. Stu Zimmerman for his perspective on conscious films.
All righty. Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
Okay, so here we go with this month's Stu's Views. And staying with the theme of conscious films, I'd like you to consider that, especially in light of Shakespeare's, all the world's a stage, that we're all, in a way, our lives are living as if they were films and if they're movies. So I'm inviting you right now to push that pause button on whatever movie you've been playing for your entire life leading up to this very moment. Just push the pause button, and if you were waiting breathlessly, your wait is over. Take a deep breath with me if you would. 1, 2, 3, let it in. And let it out. So I'm inviting you, as we've paused the movie of our lives here, to consider that we are the director, we are the lead actor, we are the script writer, even if it does seem very much like the script is being written for us. But the first thing I'd like to offer up is to consider, what kind of genre is your movie? Well, I'll tell you the genre that I'm calling in for mine, and that is definitely romantic comedy. Absolutely, in case you couldn't have guessed, right? Romantic comedy, because I love to love. Now, don't you? Doesn't it feel good just to love and to let it out and express yourself and just let that deliciousness and that passion, that enthusiasm of, yes, it is so great to be alive. Yes, it's so great to be in this warm hug embrace. Yes, it's great to be with your kids or your family members or your friends or doing something you really love, whether it's a hobby, and if hopefully in your movie you get paid for it. How cool is that? Call it, work. And have that be your life. And of course, the other piece of the romantic comedy, aside from the romance and the love, is the comedy. I mean, do any of you really not like to laugh? I mean, come on. Doesn't it feel so good? And the thing about getting conscious and getting conscious now is that when we tap into something that is so much greater than all of us, something that is all pervasive, all present in every single moment, whether you call it God, Spirit, the source of all things, the universe, a ham sandwich, it doesn't make a difference what you call it. It's ever present and in all things. And when we just consider that possibility, doesn't it become a little bit easier just to kind of laugh at ourselves a little bit? And some of the things we think, especially the thoughts we have that feel like they're Groundhog Day. Remember that movie with Bill Murray? He wakes up every day in the same story, and he keeps going time and time again. He's trying to get to his loved one or this girl he adores, and he keeps messing up, and he wakes up the next day with the same circumstances, and he keeps on doing it, till finally he kind of gets it right, okay? So I'm inviting you to let go of the pause on the Groundhog Day completely here and really invite in what kind of movie of your life do you really want to live? Romantic comedy? Absolutely. And I'm inviting in little pieces of adventure and fantasy as well. Now, before you say more about fantasy and reality, let's consider that from fantasy comes fantastic. And when I ask you, how's your life? Wouldn't it be great if you authentically responded, fantastic? So that's what I'm inviting in for Get Conscious Now's Stu's Views segment for this time around. Your life is a movie. You're directing it. You are starring in it. You are writing it. And you get to push the play button right now. And I ask, from all that is and all that created this thing right here, I ask, play me. And with that, it's ready for Patricia's infinite wisdom and quantum quotes. Patricia.
Stu, brilliant as usual, darling. Brilliant as usual.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to close the show with a quote that I found. And I love my little segment of the show here at the end. It's so fun to look at this topic of consciousness and related to all the different areas that we look at in the show, and see how, who would think conscious filmmaking? I thought, well, I'll just Google it and see what comes up. There was so much that came up, and it was so fun to read all the different quotes. The one I chose for tonight is from a Canadian filmmaker by the name of Michel Brault. And he just recently died in 2013. He was 85 years old, but he, in his 55 years in the entertainment industry, he was a cinematographer and a screenwriter and a film producer and a film director, and am I leaving anything out here? And a cameraman, of course, and he was best known in focusing his camera on social issues. So this is perfect for tonight's, for this show. Here's the quote. I don't know what truth is. Truth is something unattainable. We can't think we're creating truth with a camera, but what we can do is reveal something to viewers that allows them to discover their own truth. Very powerful. So this is so profound for me because truth is like one of those words that's very slippery. It's like the word God, for example. Do we really know who and what God is? These days, I much prefer to refer to God as the unknowable, unnameable, ineffable. And I think this is what Michel Brault was talking about with the word truth. because it really depends on our perceptions, doesn't it? Everything is our perceptions. All of us, there are, almost 7 billion people on the planet, and there are 7 billion perceptions of life. So truth always depends on our perceptions of our own life and of life itself. So if I could paraphrase what Michelle Brought was saying, it's that film gives us an opportunity to really go within and to discover our own truth. And this is conscious media. This is really what conscious media, conscious entertainment is. It really helps people to go within and help them discern their own truth of life and of their own lives. So this is also the reason why Stu and I and the wonderful crew that work with us on Get Conscious Now are so excited and passionate about this, because we are conscious media. And just like the international, the film festival that's coming up, the Awakened World International Film Festival Retreat is also conscious media at its best. So I hope to see you all there. The end of October, October 27th through the 30th, I believe. So that's it for now.
So until next time.
Until next time, get conscious now.
Welcome to State and Fig, located in historic Laura Cotta Plaza in downtown Santa Barbara.
Our menu focuses on products that are raised in the state of California, inspired by the flavors of the Riviera.
And we are proud to be sponsoring this program.
I'm attorney Gregory Lowe. I will prepare your trust, bankruptcy, divorce, conservatorship, probate, evictions. All of this I can do at an affordable price and with caring. Thank you very much.
When I was growing up as a kid, I used to go around with him and watch him.
My mother and I both worked at Lowry Field.
To keep on doing this together.
Get Conscious Now is proud to be sponsored by American Riviera Bank. It's our bank, and we feel good about it.